Islamic architecture encompasses a wide range of both secular and religious styles from the foundation of Islam to the present day. What today is known as Islamic architecture owes its origin to similar structures already existing in Roman, Byzantine and Persian lands which the Muslims conquered in the 7th and 8th centuries. Further east, it was also influenced by Chinese and Indian architecture as Islam spread to Southeast Asia. The principal Islamic architectural types are the mosque, the tomb, the palace and the fort. From these four types, the vocabulary of Islamic architecture is derived and used for other buildings such as public baths, fountains and domestic architecture. Influences. Specifically recognizable Islamic architectural style emerged soon after Muhammad's time, inspired by the former Sassanid and Byzantine models. The Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem is one of the most important buildings in all of Islamic architecture. It is patterned after the nearby Church of the Holy Sepulchre, and Byzantine Christian artists were employed to create its elaborate mosaics against a gold background. The great epigraphic vine frieze was adapted from the pre-Islamic Syrian style. The Dome of the Rock featured interior vaulted spaces, a circular dome, and the use of stylized repeating decorative arabesque patterns. Desert palaces in Jordan and Syria served the caliphs as living quarters, reception halls, and baths, and were decorated to promote an image of royal luxury. The horseshoe arch became a popular feature in Islamic structures. Some suggest the Muslims acquired this from the Visigoths in Spain, but they may have obtained it from Syria and Persia, where the horseshoe arch had been in use by the Byzantines as early as the 5th century. After the Moorish invasion of Spain in 711 AD, the form was taken by the Umayyads, who accentuated the curvature of the horseshoe. The Great Mosque of Damascus, built on the site of the Basilica of John the Baptist after the Islamic invasion of Damascus, still bore great resemblance to 6th and 7th century Christian basilicas. Certain modifications were implemented, including expanding the structure along the transversal axis which better fit with the Islamic style of prayer. The Abbasid dynasty witnessed the movement of the capital from Damascus to Baghdad, and then from Baghdad to Samarra. The shift to Baghdad influenced politics, culture, and art. The Great Mosque of Samarra, once the largest in the world, was built for the new capital. Other major mosques built in the Abbasid dynasty include the Mosque of Ibn Tulun in Cairo, Abu Dalaf in Iraq, the Great Mosque in Tunis. Abbasid architecture in Iraq, as exemplified in the fortress of Al-Qa'idiyah, demonstrated the despotic and the pleasure-loving character of the dynasty, in its grand size but cramped living quarters. The Great Mosque of Kairouan is considered the ancestor of all the mosques in the Western Islamic world. Its original marble columns and sculptures were of Roman workmanship brought in from Carthage, and other elements resemble Roman form. It is one of the best preserved and most significant examples of early great mosques. Founded in 670 AD and dating in its present form largely from the Ighlibid period, the Great Mosque of Kairouan is constituted of a massive square minaret, a large courtyard surrounded by porticos, and a huge hypostyle prayer hall covered on its axis by two cupolas. The Great Mosque of Samarra in Iraq, completed in 847 AD, combined the hypostyle architecture of rows of columns supporting a flat base above which a huge spiraling minaret was constructed. The Hagia Sophia in Istanbul also influenced Islamic architecture. When the Ottomans captured the city from the Byzantines, they converted the basilica to a mosque and incorporated Byzantine architectural elements into their own work. The Hagia Sophia also served as a model for many Ottoman mosques such as the Shehzade Mosque, the Suleiman Mosque, and the Rustam Pasha Mosque. Domes are a major structural feature of Islamic architecture. The dome first appeared in Islamic architecture in 691 with the construction of the Dome of the Rock, a near replica of the existing Church of the Holy Sepulchre and other Christian domed basilicas situated nearby. Domes remain in use, being a significant feature of many mosques and of the Taj Mahal in the 17th century. The distinctive pointed domes of Islamic architecture, also originating with the Byzantines and Persians, have remained a distinguishing feature of mosques into the 21st century. Distinguishing motifs of Islamic architecture have always been the mathematical themes of ordered repetition, radiating structures, and rhythmic, metric patterns. In this respect, fractal geometry has been a key utility, especially for mosques and palaces. Other significant features employed as motifs include columns, piers and arches, organized and interwoven with alternating sequences of niches and colonnettes. Early history. There are few buildings dating from the era of Prophet Muhammad, but one example is the Huathir Mosque in Saudi Arabia. The Rashidun Caliphate was the first state to use Islamic architecture. The Umayyad Caliphate combined elements of Byzantine architecture and Sassanid architecture, but Umayyad architecture introduced new combinations of these Western and Eastern styles. The horseshoe arch appears for the first time in Umayyad architecture, later to evolve to its most advanced form in Al-Andalus. Umayyad architecture is distinguished by the extent and variety of decoration, including mosaics, wall painting, sculpture and carved reliefs with Islamic motifs. The Umayyads introduced a transept that divided the prayer room along its shorter axis. They also added the mihrab to mosque design. The mosque in Medina built by Al-Walid I had the first mihrab, a niche on the Qibla wall, which seems to have represented the place where the Prophet stood when leading prayer. This almost immediately became a standard feature of all mosques. The Abbasid architecture of the Abbasid Caliphate was strongly influenced by Sassanid architecture, and later by Central Asian styles. The Abbasid mosques all followed the courtyard plan. The earliest was the mosque that Al-Mansur built in Baghdad, since destroyed. The Great Mosque of Samarra built by Al-Mutawakkil was 256 by 139 meters. A flat wooden roof was supported by columns. The mosque was decorated with marble panels and glass mosaics. The prayer hall of the Abdullah Mosque at Samarra had arcades on rectangular brick piers running at right angles to the Qibla wall. Both of the Samarra mosques have spiral minarets, the only examples in Iraq. A mosque at Balkh in what is now Afghanistan was about 20 by 20 meters square, with 3 rows of 3 square bays, supporting 9 vaulted domes. Construction of the Great Mosque at Cordoba beginning in 785 CE marks the beginning of Moorish architecture in the Iberian Peninsula and North Africa. The mosque is noted for its striking interior arches. Moorish architecture reached its peak with the construction of the Alhambra, the magnificent palace, fortress of Granada, with its open and breezy interior spaces adorned in red, blue, and gold. The walls are decorated with stylized foliage motifs, Arabic inscriptions, and arabesque design work, with walls covered in glazed tile. There are other, smaller, survivals such as the Bab Madam in Toledo, or the caliphal city of Medina az-Zahara. Moorish architecture has its roots deeply established in the Arab tradition of architecture and design established during the era of the First Caliphate of the Umayyads in the Levant circa 660 AD, with its capital Damascus having very well preserved examples of fine Arab Islamic design in geometrics, including the Khaman, which is the typical Damascene house, opening on the inside with a fountain as the house's centerpiece. Fatimid architecture in Egypt followed Tulunid techniques and used similar materials, but also developed those of their own. In Cairo, their first congregational mosque was Al-Azhar Mosque, founded along with the city, which together with its adjacent institution of higher learning, became the spiritual center for Ismailiyya. The Mosque of al-Hakim, an important example of Fatimid architecture and architectural decoration, played a critical role in Fatimid ceremonial and procession, which emphasized the religious and political role of the Fatimid caliph. Besides elaborate funerary monuments, other surviving Fatimid structures include the Akmar Mosque and the Al-Hakim Mosque, as well as the monumental gates for Cairo's city walls commissioned by the powerful Fatimid emir and vizier Badr al-Jamali. The reign of the Mamluks in Egypt marked a breathtaking flowering of Islamic art which is most visible in Old Cairo. Religious zeal made them generous patrons of architecture and art. Trade and agriculture flourished under Mamluk rule, and Cairo, the capital, became one of the wealthiest cities in the Near East and the center of artistic and intellectual activity. This made Cairo, in the words of Ibn Khaldun, the center of the universe and the garden of the world, with majestic domes, courtyards, and soaring minarets spread across the city.